of the convention.
Well, the first observation that I wanted to make before beginning my formal remarks is that I was sitting out in the audience during the welcoming session, and I was sitting straight out from Justice William Brennan's portrait, and I think perhaps in the spirit of today and this weekend's unique meeting here, he's leaning slightly to the right, so I think we can take that as a good sign. Thank you for Professor Lessig for welcoming us to this very beautiful and historic university. And I also want to thank Selena Gray for her expert logistical planning. She made it all look very easy, and those of us who plan meetings such as this know that it's anything but. And I especially want to thank all of you in the audience for taking your weekend to be here, because I think it shows how much you care about our country and our system. When Professor Lessig invited me to participate in this conference, I had a rather time machine sort of experience, and lest you think that I was flashed back to 1787 and the Philadelphia Convention, I was actually flashed back not quite so far, but to 1987 and the bicentennial of the product of that Philadelphia Convention. As you see, in 1987, we were celebrating, of course, the 200-year-old document that we still are governed by, and calls were mounting at that time for a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. And so in about 1987, my undergraduate mentor at the University of Louisville, Paul Weber, called me and asked if I might like to co-author a book with him. And as I was, at that time, a newly minted PhD in political science, a novice assistant professor with my dissertation not yet published, I said, yes, I'll co-author a book with you. And then I said, what are we writing on? And he said, constitutional conventions. This was Paul. Paul had a tremendous amount of enthusiasm about everything, and I had to say that my heart sank, and I said, what about them? Not trying to be too snarky, but I said, what about them? And he said, we shouldn't be afraid of them. And I said, but I am afraid of them. And Paul was a former Jesuit priest, and he just had a contagious serenity about him and an eternal optimism. And he said, don't worry. So I pretended that I was on a debate team and I had been handed a resolution in which I didn't wholeheartedly believe, and we began writing. And so in 1989, Paul and I published this book called Unfounded Fears, Myths and Realities of a Constitutional Convention. 6 years ago, next month, Paul passed away, still not having made me a believer. But I recently wrote to Professor Lessig